Hey guys, welcome to a special double shot of Haven Rewind, focusing on our series we've been going through so far, which is called Story, looking at the fact that the Bible is not just a flat religious manual. It's not just a one-dimensional book just to tell us how to do Christianity or how to be the religion called Christianity. But the Bible is a story, and it's so much deeper and so much fuller and so much more alive and fluid than just some rigid rule book. It's a document that represents God revealing Himself to humanity. So we saw that the story that God is our source, that we were broken, and then that God issued us an invitation as He came and called Abraham out and built a nation out of Abraham's offspring and promised an offspring that would be a blessing to all nations, and that Israel itself was to be a blessing to all nations, that Israel and how it was different would be a light to the nations, calling people back into relationship with God. And we looked at how Israel had a choice to serve God or serve the gods in the land that they were coming into. And they always had that choice. And they failed so many times, like we do also. And they were exiled, sent out of the land that was promised to them. And that we saw that we need to make that choice every day too. Even though we're not tempted to worship little idols, that there are things that call for our attention. And we focus our attention on neatly packaged stuff, neatly organized bits of creation. And we worship these things, whether they're electronics or relationships or personal reputations, whatever it is, we worship or put our attention on these things instead of the Creator Himself. And we have to make a choice that we can say, this day I'm going to serve the Lord. And then we looked at last week, 2 weeks ago, we looked at the fact that the Bible is reality. And looking at the wisdom writings, the writings in Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon, that the Bible speaks to reality. It's not some kind of abstract, general story that doesn't really speak directly to our lives, but it gives us good guidelines as we look at how God revealed Himself to other people, as we look at some of the just flat out statements in the writings. Don't be drunk. Don't speak out of turn. It's better to be quiet and be asked a question to speak than to offer the sacrifice of fools and just spout out nonsense all the time. There are specific things that speak to our lives. And so we had a bunch of posters around the hallway, and we looked at different emotions and different events that would bring about certain emotions. And we had the opportunity to counsel people that might be going through those things, whether it was your parents had a divorce, or you feel left out, or you feel like you're being abused, or maybe you're really happy because your team won district, or whatever, that we can look at these things and look at them through the lens of Scripture. And then last week we looked at how the story teaches us that we need to tune in to God's voice. That there are all kinds of voices speaking to us in the world. And when you walked in the door, if you were here, you walked in the door and there was about 6 radio stations all tuned to a different station and blaring at the same time. And I got to say, it was really annoying. I turned it off as soon as the last person left, maybe even before that, because I couldn't think straight with it on. But I wanted us to think about how many radio stations, radio waves are flying through our world at any given moment, but we can't hear them all because we haven't dialed in, we haven't tuned in to that specific frequency. And that throughout the Scripture, the prophets would come and call to people, listen to what God's telling you. Don't forget the word of the Lord. Here's the word of the Lord. And they would call the people back to hear God's voice, to tune in to what He's saying instead of the lies that the world offers. He's our source, and we need to listen to Him. And today, there are all kinds of voices that come into our lives, and we have to learn to dial in to God's frequency, to hear His still small voice that's not seen on a billboard, that's not seen on television, and not always seen in music or from our friends' opinions, maybe not even from our pastor's opinions, but that we need to learn to tune into His voice. And we can learn to hear His voice better as we read His Word, as we read the Bible, as we read this living representation of His revelation of Himself to us, that we can learn what His voice sounds like, and we can tune into it and follow Him. And if you haven't had a word from God today, if you haven't heard from your source, from the very source of your life today, then are you really living life today? That's a good question to think about. So, hope to see you here next Wednesday, and when we'll continue the story.